disposition and public conduct of an individual in a leadership position tends to percolate the entire organization and really does get absorbed by a natural process of osmosis by the human resources of that particular organization, what we widely term, identify, and see as the culture, quote unquote, of a company, of an institution, is oftentimes derived from the very personality of the person or people at the helm of that organization. When I met my guest today, I met her in the capacity of a parent, who was coming to a potential teacher. And so I was blissfully unaware of the many roles that she inhabits. But what did strike me immediately was a certain ease of being, which is seldom seen in my own experience, particularly in individuals who inherit certain familial legacies. And when I subsequently found out that she is now in and amongst the various roles that she's juggled through life, recently and currently leading a new and important school in my city, I was struck by that same ease because I have been criticized for being blunt. I'm not going to deter from being that way still. I find very few people, tragically, with all due respect, inspiring personally involved in education nowadays. And I was really genuinely struck by my guest today and was actually very relieved that she's involved in education. And so I was very curious that if an individual such as her is in education, she must have deeper sort of views and a vision that she is trying to bestow upon the school that she is leading. And therefore, I got after her life and coerced her into this dialogue. It is my privilege to welcome Vrinda Kothari, director of the Kulish School. And it is with her that I want to investigate her own thought process in terms of really the sort of skills and the fundamental prerequisites that a younger generation ought to develop in order to not just inhabit, but navigate and successfully uh, tackle a world that is vastly different from the one it was when we ourselves were children. So I'm very, very thankful and grateful that Vrinda's made the time. I know she's been keeping extremely busy, but I want to express my gratitude and welcome her. Welcome, Vrinda.
Thank you so much, Karthik. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you for having me here and, for letting me express my thoughts and, views on what I feel education should be. So thank you for having me here.
It's our pleasure entirely, Vrinda. And since you brought it up yourself, let's throw you then straight into the deep end.
Sure.
Uh, I'm going to preface this with something slightly cheeky, but I'm merely playing devil's advocate.
Okay.
With given that you don't necessarily have a professional or academic background in education or administering education,
Mm-hmm.
which I find in my own case as a teacher, the fact that I'm not a teacher, I don't hold a BEd degree, actually extremely liberating. Uh, with that background, how do you view your role as somebody in a leadership position of a school in today's times?
So Karthik, I would first like to say that it's not, I don't really say that I'm leading the school. I think I'm trying to build the school with a team of people who are really passionate about education, who do feel that there needs to be some kind of transformation in this space, and who really truly believe that this probably is the only tool that can bring about transformation in the society. So if you honestly ask me, I think this is the biggest thing that we can do. And as you said, there is a certain legacy that we carry, which is Patrika, and I feel my role is to be the cord between Patrika's legacy and that of the school. So we've always been known for our credible and fearless journalism. We've always been known to be the voice of the people, to do what is right, even when nobody's watching. And I think that is truly what we want our children to be, right? How can they feel that they can become these change makers who can truly impact the society in a positive way? I think that is what we are trying to build when we talk about the school.
Believe it or not, I'm getting goosebumps because I rarely hear these things being said. And if it is indeed, which I have no doubt, are the central values that you are trying to consciously or unconsciously pass on to your student body in terms of a fiercelessness and a staunch moral uprightness, that's absolutely brilliant. A lot of work is being done, Brinda, nowadays around bridging certain gaps that have been seen to exist between the theoretical knowledge and education that we receive at school and particularly in higher education and the sectoral needs of the working world. And any number of companies and organizations are engaged in very efficiently plugging those gaps, upskilling young people so that they may serve as effective additions to the workforce. um, an equal number of people, very learned people, and organizations are also extremely cognizant of so many other newer developments and therefore requirements that students would be wise to upskill themselves in, whether it's AI, technology, digitization, vagera, vagera. So my point simply being that there's a lot of focus on that. What there isn't perhaps equal focus on is on the more emotional aspect, the more wellness aspect, the more mental health aspect of making our children robust in those areas. Because, I mean, the simple fact is that these children are now in a world where they encounter a much higher degree of distress, and that too from various multiple sources. Which again is very different from our own relatively footloose and fancy free childhoods, whether it is heightened peer pressure, social media, the need to fit in, be cool, their own understanding and perceptions of aspiration, instant overnight fame, success. What are your thoughts on this? Do you feel that this part of a young individual's life is important to be addressed? The fact that we should and ought to be working on the resilience part of it?
Absolutely, Karthik. I truly agree with you. See, the thing is that I think we need to create a balance. So I feel, and as a school, we do strongly feel that the education now has to be an education which is body, mind, soul, and intellect. So there has to be a balance in the education. You can't just be doing, just and of course, it is very important what you're saying, because the way the world is evolving, you and I are not in a position to predict what it will be like, or what we even are preparing our kids for the next 5 years, because everything is changing. Some industries are dying, new ones are coming up. So every day, how do you keep yourself relevant is extremely important. And that will not happen only with your textbooks or your subject knowledge. I think there will be a lot of, let's say, traits that you need to develop. If you say you want to be a citizen of the 21st century, those are the things we really need to focus on, because a lot of your coding might just become redundant. You might want your child to do a coding programs, let's do this language, that language, and maybe 5 years down the line you realize that it was all a waste. So why did we even do that? So what is really important for everyone to understand, that you need to instill that growth mindset in the child from a very early age. Also, see what you were talking about, our generation, right? Our childhood was so simple because we didn't really have too many choices. We didn't, it was everything limited resources. Everything was so limited. So we were actually living
But I'm sorry, I'm
longer.
interrupting. The irony is that despite the very, very limited access and resources, the freedom was monumentally more. I mean, all of us
Exactly.
have
That's
lived
my
those
point.
days where, in the evening, we would even, without telling our
Absolutely.
parents, saunter off to the neighbors on our
Absolutely. So
bicycles, etc.
100%. So there was a freedom, but now these kids are getting trapped in this virtual world. You know what I mean? Because their world now has changed. It's not where you and I grew up. There's infinite information available, unlimited resources. There's just so many choices for them. And now what is happening is that as children, they're absorbing anything and everything that they're getting because they don't know how to filter it. So as parents, as educators, I think that is more important. Like, how do you, I feel skill sets are extremely important. How do you, there's a lot of, everybody's talking about competition and comparison, and a lot of it, mind you, I mean, we do say that there's a lot of parental pressure, but I also feel there's a lot of self-infused pressure, because when they
Absolutely.
see, they keep comparing themselves with, others. They'll see somebody's life on Instagram and they really believe that this is what it is, but they don't know these are just for optics. This is not what the person is like. So, these kids then spiraling into anxiety and depression and all of those things because they don't know how do you filter this information. What is it that is relevant for them, and just take that. Also, how do you apply, whatever you are learning? So I think those are the things that need to be addressed in today's time and age, more than just focusing on their academic excellence, just running after numbers. It has to be critical thinking, curiosity over cramming. I mean, those are the things that you need to develop from a very early on. There has to be empathy over intelligence. So those are the things that we need to, as educators, as parents, I think it's a collaborative effort. Everybody needs to do, it takes a village to raise a child. So everybody needs to do their bit.
Most definitely. I couldn't agree more. It certainly does take a village. Um, what are or might be some concrete sort of steps that are in the pipeline, or for that matter, already in place to manifest and realize some of what you outlined?
So as I said, we are only a year old. We are trying our best. We are all work in progress. Having said that, we do feel, as I said, that these things are very, very important for us. So, mindfulness. So we do have something called a circle time where the kids can actually come, sit down, they can introspect. So just to go within, I think that, for them to explore and understand their inner world is very important, because right now everything is happening for the outer world. And maybe that is something that wouldn't happen suddenly. It has to be a habit that needs to be developed on from a very early age. So we do encourage this time where, the students can sit together, they don't feel judged, they feel comfortable sharing their emotions. And that is when, you understand a lot more about. So I think for us, that is important. How do you kind of introspect, explore your inner world, breathing exercises, meditation? Because, suddenly you tell a 15-year-old, now you sit down and meditate. It's not going to happen. You know what I mean? So those are very tiny habits that need to be instilled from a very early age. And if you see kids, I mean, you'll be surprised. They're so smart. Kids as early as 4 and 5 year olds, they're actually sitting, doing the breathing practices, pranayam, meditating. So I think those are the things which we need to kind of instill so that it calms them down and they don't have anxiety.
You very correctly and importantly pointed out that it is a collaborative effort. In so many of these instances, whatever well intentioned steps an institution is taking uh, tend to be undone completely once the child returns home because of the culture of that particular home or family or construct. Um, do you have any kind of outreach to the parents where you're also orienting them so that there's at least some kind of continuity at on the home front?
So, Karthik, we do have interaction with our parents. We try to do these, every 5 or 6 weeks, we do call our parents, we interact with them, and we tell them what is it that we are doing in the school. So that's something that they can take back home and they can. But as you said, I think it's extremely important to educate the parents. I mean, if you ask me, so there are two spectrums that I have experienced so far. One is a set of parents who are really driven, focused, it's like academic excellence, marks, this, that, and their kids are doing everything. It's not that they're not performing, they are performing. But once they go in the outside world and experience one tiny failure, they cannot handle it.
Mm.
There's like suddenly mental breakdown, depression, anxiety, all those things. Then there is this other spectrum, these parents who say that, oh, all we want is that our children should be happy, we don't want anything more than that, right? We just want a happy. But then the question is, how do you define this happiness? I mean, I often feel we are all human beings. Come on, it's impossible for you and I to stay happy all the time, right? You're humans, you will experience all kind of emotions. You'll be sad, you'll be upset, you'll be maybe jealous, angry, anxious, everything. I mean, those are the emotions that you need to experience, but also understand. So I think we all need to just understand and make our children understand that these are fleeting moments. They're not defining your life journey. They'll come and go. Even your success and failure, it's a part of your journey. And it's a very fleeting moment. Don't just hold on to it, because it's not going to stay like this forever. And I think that is something that I often feel, maybe, I don't know, that's my understanding and that's how I see it. I do feel there's a gap there which needs to be addressed. And just be very communicative with your children and let them feel it's okay if you're sad today, it doesn't matter. But why are you sad? So just kind of, if we can go behind the emotion and understand the why of our children and address it, I think that would really help them in their journey.
That's very well articulated. In fact, you're preaching to the choir because I've observed in my own capacity as a teacher and a parent, the one overwhelming emotion that children these days seem to crave perennially is stimulation stroke entertainment, right? So to make them understand and realize the value and merit in boredom. You can't
Absolutely.
be, always on.
100%.
You can't be sort of high strung and entertained and, in some kind of rush all the time.
100%.
Um, so there are so many things, but yeah,
Some
you're
of the
absolutely
best ideas come out of boredom. So I agree with
true.
you on that. Yes.
Absolutely. Now, when it sort of comes to, because we all understand that this is a collaborative effort, again, one can be a very well intentioned management, one can have a supportive parent community. How do you, in your limited capacity and with restrictions being what they are, apply the same yardsticks to the people you bring on board to teach and interact with the children? Is that something that you look for when you are hiring teachers, or do you also then sort of have some orientation, sensitization, and training as you go along?
Absolutely, Karthik. I mean, for us, the school is the teacher and the students. We might have bigger vision, everything that we are speaking about, but the translation will essentially happen through our teachers. So we are very mindful when we are recruiting our teachers. Of course, there are multiple interviews, and our orientation and training programs are also very rigorous. And we try to get individuals who don't take teaching as it's not a 8 to 5 job. It's more than that. It's a very noble profession. I mean, I always tell them, as I see, even God, Lord Ramji was a lord, right? Like Ram, Krishna, they all needed their gurus to perform. Arjun needed a guru like Dronacharya. So you can't do anything, you without a good guru. So, and that is the power they have. So every morning, we always tell them, every morning when you step into your classroom, just realize the kind of responsibility you have, because you have the responsibility of transforming these 20-25 lives that you have in front of you. And from our experience also, Karthik, I mean, I think you would agree, we enjoyed the subjects whose subject teachers were very good, or we
Hmm.
liked them, right? I mean, they were the ones who really made the subject interesting or boring for us.
Sure.
So for us, that's very important that the children fall in love with their teachers first, And then, because then everything that they say, or the learning will happen much faster and in a fun way.
A very fundamental study of psychology will tell you that this confidence, resilience, all these very important but terms that are quite loosely thrown around nowadays, holistic, resilience, without, I always am suspicious about how much people who are using them even know what they mean. A lot of this true confidence, self belief, I think comes from an individual not just knowing himself or herself, but actually being fond of that person deep inside, to put it very simply. This translates in different ways through the life cycle of a human being, particularly when an individual comes into the latter half of middle school and into high school. And I know fully well that your school is not there yet, but uh, one significant piece of this pie at that stage becomes what that child is going to do post school, both academically and in terms of a larger life plan. We are even today, despite having world class schools, international boards, not exactly in a place where we have extremely well oiled career counseling or academic counseling departments or functions at our schools, which probably then means that it's a good idea to rely, let's say, on a quality aptitude test being administered, things of that nature. What are your thoughts on this as your own school eventually goes into those grades?
So, Karthik, honestly, if you ask me, and these are, as I said, my thoughts, but I feel even when the child goes into career counseling, as you're mentioning, and then there are some of these psychometric tests where you assess, okay, what the child might be good at. But I feel they can, maybe not, I don't know whether it's, but they could be right. They could also be, because it depends on that particular
Of
time, right?
course, absolutely.
So I feel it's very important because, see, as a do believe that every child is unique. Every child has a spark. And for us, what is important is to give that kind of a environment or nurture and help the child discover actually what his or her talent or passion is, and then to nurture it. I mean, that is what it should be, right? So I think even when a child, so typically a child would get into a career counseling. Now, of course, it's kind of, now it's starting as early as 8 and 9 grades. And then, there's a path that you will be shown and you say, okay, now just follow this path and you will get there, but you don't let them explore. I feel it's important that we let them explore whatever they want to do. And then maybe we need to closely track or monitor our child from the very beginning and to see where is it. So, we don't have to make that track for the child. We need to see which area or which track the child is deviating towards, and just then I think that is where we need to make sure that okay, maybe this is your path and this is what you should be doing and this is where you, so then that will be something that will be really, something that the child is truly passionate about. Because you see, I mean, in my experience, I have come across people who have done engineering, went to IIT, did their marketing, did all of that, went to their corporate job, quit everything. One is a photographer.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I,
absolutely. I
you know
mean,
what I
you
mean?
half
So
of them are stand-up comedians now. So
so I'm just saying that if you can, maybe, so I feel maybe some kind of way in which you can either that evaluation, because right now the evaluation system that we have is also very redundant. I mean, it's all just your, marks. Okay, you get this much, then you get a A or a B. But I think we need to evolve a little more, and then this data collection has to be done at various points, so we know what is our child moving towards, where we can also let our parents know, see, this is what we feel your child is good at, and maybe this is something that we should be pursuing.
absolutely. I in
If
principle,
you tell a fish to climb a tree, the fish will always be a failure. So
absolutely. No, no, no.
I
There is a complete resonance with what you're saying. Actually, what I failed to mention is I was asking you in a very specific context, which is
okay.
the context where, unfortunately, at this very crucial stage of high school, is where I find a lot of students and parents getting into an area of conflict, because typically speaking, at that stage is when a student goes to the parents and says mujhe x cheez karni hai, and the parents anyway all along have been saying nahi nahi beta aapko to a ya b stream choose karna hai, whether it's academic and then leading to certain careers. And therefore the entire career counseling function, I'm not trying to diminish its importance, but I'm suggesting it more as a one more tool that might help both parent and child to come
Sure.
to some kind of understanding and common ground in a slightly scientific manner, just in a way where a doctor, a medical doctor, would use a diagnostic set, a test to give them certain insights.
Hmm. So I mean, then of course it is a helpful tool,
Hmm.
which is something that, if you can bridge that kind of gap, so even the parents understand where the child is coming from, and the child understands where the parents are coming from, and they come to I think that is always helpful. So
Because, you know, the reality of our country still, unfortunately, continues to be a very, very significant majority of our population where, honestly, the parents don't necessarily take into account the natural scholastic leanings of a child, but let's take a very crude situation of somebody very artistic will be forced to do their CA, will be forced to do their engineering. So I'm talking about at that very, very basic level.
So I think that's essentially because we have a fixed mindset of, saying that, oh, this is what a definition of success should look like. This is, there'll be some kind of financial security, blah,
Yeah,
blah,
safe
blah.
career.
Exactly. So I think that's all a mindset which now is changing. I mean, I'm not saying that parents are not evolving. They are also evolving with time, but also a lot of the times that, it's a pattern, because you see, most of the schools would prepare you for for a living, but not for like a fulfilling life. That's
Hmm.
what I feel.
Hmm.
So it's a very cookie cutter approach. This again, this is what you need to do to be blah, blah, blah. But I feel it's important. And that's when I said that if the child, we can monitor that interest of the child, or we can help them discover their passion and their interest from an early age, maybe so much, what you're saying, these just being loggerheads with their parents might not happen, because the parent would also understand that this is where my child, or this is what my child is bending towards. So maybe this is where I need to support my child so that my child can excel. That's what I feel. So of course this will help, but then the clashes would be probably minimized if we can.
Minimize. And you know, also let me tell you that and I I mean, I don't envy my own position, because ever so often parents or kids or both approach me in these situations of conflict, and the first thing I tell the children is that please remove this from your minds, that your parents are hell-bent on killing your dreams and aspirations, because they may be suggesting something that is opposed to what you want to do, but the motive behind that will always be love and purity and sincerity of deep care and concern. And the moment you understand that, in any case, your anger will dissipate to a large extent.
Absolutely. And then I think what is also important is that you need to make your children understand that you are responsible for the decision that you're making, or for the actions that you're taking. And it has to be a choice, it has to be a choice that you're making. So you have all the facts in front of you. I think that as a parent is something that we need to do. Tell them, give them their options. Okay, this is what it is. And now you choose. And once you choose that, so it has to be a mindful decision, not something like, suddenly you feel like doing something, like that. It has to be a mindful decision that the child needs to do. And then as parents, we need to support that decision, because the child needs to be made aware that the consequences, you will have to bear the consequences of the choices you make.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Wonderful. As we wrap up, finally, I must ask you, because at the end of the day, we are very much a mental wellness platform. Um, uh, just a couple of things that take place at your school specifically, which you feel bring a certain amount of um, uh, calmness, stillness in across the organization, not just students?
I think I did mention a few where we say that, just morning circle
Mm.
time, meditative practices, a lot of collaboration. So we like, really encourage our kids to uh, collaborate with each other because, that's how the real life is going to be. So you need to
No,
kind
but can you contextualize that? I'm a bit confused when you say what you mean when you say collaborate.
lot of project work,
Hmm.
project-based learning. So when we say talk about the project-based learning, we also talk about practical application. So anything that they're learning
Hmm.
in the classroom, how do you apply? That is something that we encourage in our classrooms. Also, we do focus on beyond classroom education. So we do believe in taking our kids out, whether it's close to nature, picnics, because there's a lot that nature has to teach you, right? So if
Sure.
you have biology lesson, why not just go for mountaineering, understand about the nature, the landscape, and all of that. And also interaction with, let's say, different organizations. For example, our kids went to the blind school last a semester, just, for them to understand, also to have that kind of empathy, how we can support them. Or so I think those are the things that we try to instill in our kids. So kind of real world interactions, I think also help. So we don't want them to be boxed in a classroom space because learning can happen anywhere and everywhere. So we encourage that in our kids, and yeah, I think that's about it.
Hmm.
Those are
No, I certainly see that happening. I deeply admire your entire concept of the shared play areas between classrooms. You did
yes,
also mention to me earlier that there's a pet day and you actually brought in an animal onto campus. All of these things are absolutely essential and wonderful. Not only do they serve as healthy distractions, sometimes they counter many irrational fears that society and families and parents pass on to children. So,
absolutely.
all of that is wonderful. Thank you so much for having made the time, that too on a Wednesday morning, right at the start of your day. We wish you and the school all the very best.
Thank you.
I, for one, am very excited that there's a new, sensitive, mindful educational establishment in my city which needs it. And so, all the very best, and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karthik.